Hi, my name is Haley, and I'm a MSW student at ASU. And today I'm going to be discussing racial identity development theory, Erikson's stage of development, and critical race theory. In reading the racial identity development theory, it allowed me to reflect on my own experiences and how they related to informing my own racial identity. The theory itself helps describe racial and ethnic identity and develop, and it's looking through the lens of the environment as well as throughout the childhood through all the way to adult age or old age. So, what informed my racial identity? I was privileged growing up. Both my parents had full-time jobs they made a decent amount of money. We were considered upper middle class. We had a home, really never had any worries about making ends meet. At a young age, I don't feel like I realized this privilege, but as I grew up, I realized how privileged I was to be able to live in a home with both parents and have adequate amount of all of my needs met, as well as extra stuff that they allowed me to do. So I'm very thankful for that, but I'm also very privileged to have had that and grown up that way. I had enough time and experience and money for extracurricular activities, and that was able to help me build my resume and move forward from there. So I would say in my teen years, like my adolescent years, I would say I was around 14 to 18. I was concerned about equality and for people having, equal rights. However, I didn't think about race as a system before college. And honestly, before college, I really didn't understand that systemic racism is the reason why people don't have the leg up that other people do. I remember also playing the privilege game while I was in college, and that really opened my eyes as to like these little steps that certain people are allowed to have versus like the ones that they don't get to take that step because they don't have the privilege to access that. And so I felt like before college, I didn't really understand or grasp this. However, when I first sat in an anthropology class for cultural diversity, I was just flabbergasted and astonished by being able to understand and being actually taught the true history of Americans and what we've done and how we've hurt people and how people are due reparations. And I just feel as though up into college, I was not taught. I feel like my education was whitewashed. My school in itself was called White Ridge. And so when I moved from Colorado to South Carolina and then now Nashville, Tennessee, I experienced so much more diversity just in living every day compared to going and living in a suburban, mostly white surrounding area of Denver. So I also remember being really upset with the state of our education and the last, 4 years in high school that I'd basically learned nothing, no matter if I was taking AP classes or not. I learned narrative from the colonizer's perspective and not from the perspective of a Native American or a perspective of an African American or black versus white. My education was completely whitewashed, and it left out specific details. Like, we did talk about the Civil War, but it was never in depth. We never talked about the concentration camps, the Indian Removal Act. Like, we've never talked about any of that before, and I just got thorough examples throughout my time in college, which really opened my eyes to knowing, the cultural diversity and critical race theory is a huge part in how we can navigate our system and help people as social workers to navigate the system in their favor. So it says, describe a time you experienced or witnessed institutional racism. So during high school, this was around the same time period I would have been in adolescence. For Erickson's stages, I would have been within my confusion or conflict stage. So working to explore the world, developing my own ideologies, opinions. I'm really trying to build that narrative, but without the educational perspective that's needed to like form that opinion. So I would say that this example, I'll just tell you the example. So during high school, I was dating a black man named Jacob. We had been together for all of high school. And so we were very close. However, he did end up not being the best thing for me. However, I do recall a time when I was at my grandparents' house on my dad's side for Christmas, and we were eating dinner, and my dad started conversating about like me and my boyfriend and how I had a boyfriend and we were doing this and that and all that stuff. And so my uncle asked, oh, can I see a picture of him? And I was like, sure, yeah, no problem. So I pulled up a picture right away, just like super happy, enthusiastic, to show him who this man I was like with, and that I thought I loved. And the first thing out of his mouth that came out of his mouth was, he's black? Like, just like, you could hear the disgust coming out of his voice. After that, I basically shut down completely. I felt disgusting. I couldn't believe that I was right then and there with somebody that had portrayed to me hate just because of somebody's skin color. That was really a turning moment for me in that family, where I decided that that is not what I believe in. I do not appreciate how he acted, and I've actually never really talked to him ever again since then. I really haven't. I was just really disgusted, and it made me feel guilty and ashamed that I was associated with that type of thought process, and it just made me disgusted. And it made me think back onto the video that we watched about conversations with white people on race. And I know it was an opinion piece, but it represents like that discomfort that white people feel when talking about race. And I spent my whole college career trying to help ease that discomfort and start conversations about how racism systematically affects certain minority individuals in our country and all around the world. So I think like within those conversations, it just was like, it brought more depth of like that discomfort that we really shouldn't have when talking about this, because this is fact. And although we feel guilty, and we should feel guilty, talking about it and being aware of it makes it all the better, in a sense that somebody's not having to explain it to you. You're reaching out for that knowledge yourself. I think if I was to do anything different from my story, I would have not walked away. I would have not left in anger and discomfort. I would have questioned him. I would have tried to understand and have an open dialogue about why he thought that. It's interesting to me that my father was not like that, and he never mentioned anything like that. But I would have tried to advocate for the critical race theory, and with my understanding now and the knowledge I have today, I would have tried to make it so he would never have to act like that again. So that's it. Thank you so much.